Hello everybody, it is the me, Game Penguin 21, and today, I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone with this video. That being, I'm gonna make a video on Harman Smith and also talk about the new Steam news that came out last week. Mainly, the fact that Steam came out with 3 new hardware announcements. That being the Steam Deck Controller 2, that looks kind of like an updated version of the Atari controller from back in the day, but I mean, we'll have to see how it feels in the hands. Then there's also the Steam Box. I know it's probably got a different name, but it's just the Steam Box, or as people have lovingly started calling it, the Gabe Cube. And then also the Steam Deckard or the Steam Vision, the VR headset that they have, which also kind of doubles as, actually using a second monitor or something. It's really cool, and quite honestly, that's the thing that I would be gunning for of the 3, because a lot of the controllers and stuff seem to be exactly what I wanted to be, so excellent. Overall, the amount of things happening with this seems to basically, and inevitably, be leading to Valve maybe not dominating the space, but, coming in and showing people how it's done. Going over the specs and things, we'll probably do that later in this video. But I really wanted to just talk about Harman Smith and his views on Valve's entire legacy of hardware stuff, just because I think it'd be a fun little contrasty bit while I give you the news alongside this. But of course, if you like what it is that I do and support me in any other way, shape, or form other than like and subscribe, which is always enough, links down to everything in the description below. I stream on here every Sunday at 12 p.m. EST. Come on by, say hi, we'll play some games. I also have a Ko-Fi that you can go and donate me money if you really want to, and if you want, I am also free and available for commissions for a few different things. Just kind of see if you can message me somehow. We'll get in touch. Overall, with that being said, let's get a look at how apparently PC gamers claim that consoles are obsolete, but soyjack at every piece of Valve's failed hardware, at least according to Harman Smith.
I have already spoken at length about what I think about the Steam machine and what's going to come of it. It's going to be another fail. Valve has a history of putting out pieces of hardware that don't go anywhere, gaslighting people into thinking they're successful, and then just moving on to the next thing. They've been doing it for at least 15 years, and they have a long history of it. And you keep seeing their fans come out and do this thing where they say that, like, this time it's going to work and this time it's going to be successful. Valve is the best in the industry. Like, never mind that none of that is true and that it's completely out of touch with reality, that Valve has a long history of not being as successful as Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox. But
okay, so the interesting comparison there is that he actually said that they don't have as much success as Nintendo, Xbox, or even PlayStation. I mean, considering the fact that 2 out of the 3 of those are actually bringing their games over to the PC and also utilizing stuff through Steam, how Steam, by the contraries of doing nothing when a lot of the publishers decided to leave and create their own clubhouses for all their own games, ended up crawling back because a lot of their stuff ended up failing because they realized that Valve just offered up all the best sorts of services that they possibly could, or in the end that they ended up breaking at least their maximum amount of players online at one time to, I think, over 45 million or something like that. I don't know, I don't remember, but they broke that record at least 2 or 3 times over the past 2 to 3 years. And again, there is a lot of people out there that are saying that that Steam actually has monopoly. There has been a number of articles that have been written over the years for that. So when people are claiming that you are so successful that you have monopolistic practices, even when Valve has made none of that possible, Valve has left the door wide open for other people to come along and just, try and beat them. They have very much advocated for other people to use their stuff. In fact, they have advocated for people to even use Steam OS on a lot of their new systems. But people just don't want to for whatever reason. It's kind of weird to say, but at the same time, when you think about it, don't you think that them being one of the biggest market people out there and having Gabe Newell himself being one of the top people to be worth a fuck ton of money, don't you think that shows a bit how successful things are? But no. Valve is not successful because a lot of their hardware hasn't been successful. Never mind the fact that the Steam Deck itself created an entire now niche, but still rather thriving community of people who are interested in, mobile PCs and actually kickstarting a lot of the people off to get mobile PCs to the point of where Xbox is now stepping their toe into it, literally with their next semi-console, and they're thinking about it. Never mind the fact that most of their new stuff also takes a lot of the old stuff that they used to have, but just zhuzhes it up and, adds the features that people actually fucking want. But of course, Valve is failing because they, again, just announced those 3 other things alongside having a successful VR headset that they still want to produce, but they can't because of production on the other stuff is now starting. So I don't know. Kind of seems like Valve's being pretty successful from where I'm sitting. So
the interesting thing about this is just the obvious double standard at play here. Valve is essentially producing console hardware that PC gamers are hyping up. So this alone should demonstrate the reality behind the PC master race and what they actually are, because they don't actually play games on PC. They play games on Valve properties. They are Steam fanboys, not PC fanboys. And this is very important when talking about PC gaming as a whole, because when you talk about Valve specifically, when you stop pretending that Valve somehow benefits from emulation or piracy or modding, you realize quite handedly that Valve is nowhere near as successful as.
again, it's really interesting to me how he says that if you just take away a lot of the things that don't even really matter, including things such as modding, where they don't actually, have modding support for all of them, they might have the Steam Workshop, but of course, not everyone uses the Steam Workshop, but, they don't really benefit from modding. They don't really benefit from emulation, as far as I can tell. And while, yes, their products can do both, Valve offering that as a thing is more of just them offering a computer. Them also saying, oh, they're offering up, console hardware, and I'm assuming that he means, the Steam box thing, as well as the other 2 being more compatible with it. I think he's mostly referring to the Steam box here, so I'm going to be referring to that as well. Saying that he's offering it in terms of, quote, sorry, 1 second. But saying that they're offering it mostly to having console hardware in the sense of that word, I guess, is not really true. Well, yes, that is console-like hardware, i.e., it's not really meant to be tinkered with. It is still kind of meant to be tinkered with because the operating system is open source and is available for other people to download and try to install onto other things. It's made off of Linux, so it's a very open operating system. They offer an entire free desktop system alongside of it, and they offer enough of modularity in their products, including again with the Deckard headset as well. Again, they somehow fit an entire computer into it, all over a dedicated wireless signal, and they somehow made it work. And I am very confused to how they actually ended up making it work. I would really prefer if it was a wired connection, but maybe that's just me. Maybe if they had a wired connection, or maybe they had a way to, charge the battery a bit better, but that's neither here nor there. Overall, again, I find it weird how he's saying, oh, they benefit from emulation and they benefit from modding and stuff like that. Those aren't benefits to Steam. They're benefits to PC gaming as a whole. And saying that they're loyal to Valve is not really true. I myself just like Steam as a platform because that's where a lot of my games are. But that doesn't mean that I'm solely going to be using stuff like Steam. One of the other things that ended up happening is that Amazon tried to compete. Remember when they decided to do that, and they would offer free games through GOG and Twitch and stuff like that, but they ended up being I guess we just can't do that because we're not competing on it. And again, They said that they were trying to compete with Steam, but they weren't competing on the same forefront that Steam was, because Steam has already figured out everything. They're saying, hey, copy us. We have the format. Go right ahead and do so. They completely allow, Epic Games to continue to operate, and like they're not just allowing that. They just like say, hey, keep going. And it's just really dumb how people consider that Valve is like the only option, and yet at the same time, Harman over here is being like, Valve is not successful because when you take away these very small benefits of just PC gaming as a whole, they're not as successful, even though, again, they've been buying out and having about millions upon millions of dollars being funneled through them. But again, what do I know? I only really pay attention to the actual news. So,
As people make them out to be. It is a really good example.
Did you notice that long pause? Even he was trying to think of like a way to actually twist it into his narrative. Quite interesting.
Of just how hypocritical these people actually are, because they have spent the past decade or longer trying to tell people that consoles are completely obsolete, that PC gaming is superior, that PC gaming is taking over, that there's like 1 billion people playing games on PC right now. Like, you have seen so many people say that console gaming is completely obsolete, and then they turn around and start soy jacking when Valve announces their video game console, and they bend over backwards to deny that it even is a console. Like, that's the thing we saw with the Steam Deck, and we're seeing now again with the Steam machine, is that people are saying these are like gaming PCs, like condensed into a video game console, and it's just like, so you're saying it's a video game console, okay? Because that's what it.
No, we're saying that it's a PC with the skin of a console over the top of it. More or less, it's skinned to make it look like it's a console or have the similar console feel. That way, people that know what they want or don't want to invest too heavily into PC gaming can go and buy this, which is already basically the plug and play that the consoles had touted for years. It also has a lot of the same interfaces and a lot of the same actual controller support and setups and stuff that the people who would be coming from console over to PC would want. And with a lot of the same games of the other consoles coming on over, and more or less of them being playable on them, maybe not all of them, but enough to be, quite interesting, this thing is still pretty powerful. And again, it is a PC because it has a full PC-like interface or a full PC desktop that you just don't see in a lot of places. And yeah, certainly, you could say that it's a console, you could say that it's a PC. Overall, it is a PC console kind of hybrid, but it has more PC functionalities, again, with just the UI and GUI of a console. At least that's what most people like myself who are actually in the space would call it. Same thing with the Steam Deck. It is a console-like experience, but that doesn't mean that it's a console itself.
Console is. Like, again, like, these people don't have like any common sense. They don't have any understanding of technology. Like, they just want to say that like a dedicated video game console is a PC because Valve produced it. It's like, no, that isn't how this works. And
It's not how it works. I mean, yeah, certainly, a console being dedicated would usually entitle that a console is very limited in its scope. But a PC is one where it's not really limited in its scope. That, I think, is the main difference. The console itself, or the console of, say, Xbox, is more esoteric now than it once was. So they don't really have any market focus to it. Whereas Valve says, here, our market focus is to basically create a baseline PC with a console-like experience, while at the same time delivering every benefit that the PC has alongside of it. And that's what it does. It is a PC with a console's skin over top of it. It is not a console. It is not a specific big budget company that is trying to do it for profits. They're doing this just because, well, they are trying to, I guess, compete in the space. Really, at the end of the day, Steam, in and of itself, has a lot more trust than the community does, than most of the other console companies and things do. And sure, you can call it a console if you want. You're wrong, but at the same time, again, how are they a failure if they just announced like a whole line of updated hardware? Just kind of seems weird here.
It's laughable to me how many people like are hyping up the Steam machine as if it's going to do something, as if it's going to leave some impact on the industry, as if it's going to be more relevant than the Xbox. When the Xbox became relevant by having like good, interesting games from high quality developers, Ninja Gaiden, Dead or Alive, Tales, like Xbox did a lot. Halo, like Years of War, like Xbox did a lot to make itself relevant. What has Valve done? It's in its entire history that has ever left that much of an impact. The fact of the matter is, you have
I mean, first of all, I find it very strange that he's actually hyping up Xbox and not Nintendo here. Quite the interesting plot twist we have found ourselves in. But more specifically, what has Valve done other than, I don't know, make Half-Life the series, which was basically genre defining in a lot of different ways, every single release of Half-Life. Half-Life 1 being where a lot of the actual physics for games ended up being. Half-Life 2 being an extension and an implant and a bringing forth of the actual physics engine itself to a new era. The two episodes kind of petered in such a weird direction, but at the same time were kind of cool. But obviously, then they made one of the most popular and actual biggest fucking VR games that really ended up showing the power and true power of VR, making another headset that was actually the industry leader in VR headsets for a long time, creating a lot of the standards that they have for even just finger tracking and tracking in general. As well, as they are now coming forward and they made an entire fucking blue ocean industry in terms of the portable handheld gaming PC markets, and now are bringing forward the ideas from yesterday, being that, the Steam controller, which at the time wasn't the greatest, but still had some pretty interesting, neat ramifications to it, alongside of not only just bringing controller support forward, but also allowing, them to say, hey, there is a market for this, and other companies then followed suit by, making their controllers have controller support. It wasn't a thing before. Like, I don't remember being able to hook up an Xbox 360 controller without having to jump through a couple of hoops. But now you can hook up practically any controller to it so long as you know what you're doing. And even the modern ones are just now plug and play into your computer. That wasn't a thing before Valve came along and did that. Steam machines might have failed at first, but they learned from their mistakes and over time created again the Steam Deck and now the Steam Box or GameCube or whatever you want to fucking call it. So overall, while yes, they did have a pretty big history of a couple different failures, that doesn't necessarily mean that those failures didn't eventually lead to success. And again, I find it interesting how the Steam Deck was the first big success that they ended up having, and now they're bringing forward the other few ideas that didn't see as much success forward modernly, that being the controller and the Steam machine or the Steam Cube or whatever. And then now the Deckard being the second generation of the VR market that now has very out there things that people are probably going to look at and be like, maybe we can do the same thing. It's quite interesting how, again, saying, oh yeah, all this stuff is not going to be industry defining when they have industry leading and industry defining things inside the box already without you even knowing about it. What was that about us PC gamers not knowing about hardware and how the industry works when people like me know about eye tracking and the actual specs of the machine and stuff? It just seems kind of weird.
People sitting there and saying Valve is going to be better than Xbox because it has this long history of games on the Steam library, as if they're completely unaware that Xbox has an entire ecosystem of games throughout its entire history as well. The Xbox One went to great lengths to preserve all of its most relevant games on its platform. Same with Nintendo. You're really trying to argue.
I love how he brings up the Xbox One as if that's kind of like trying to bring forward that stuff. I find it weird how, again, he says that Xbox has this whole ecosystem as well. It's like, okay, so does Valve. Two ecosystems can exist within the same market space itself. But Valve's is just better because Valve's has something that Xbox's does not. And that is what's known as focus. While yes, Xbox does have a long history of a lot of games that more or less are backwards compatible to whatever reason, most of their newer stuff, the new things that are supposed to be integrated into that ecosystem, aren't really integrated as well as they would want it to be. However, with Valve's ecosystem, despite the fact that it's maybe a little not great and based off of an open source system, it still shows that it can be integrated well into any system itself, being as compatible as possible with fucking everything. It's quite interesting, again, how people look at this, and again, he looks at this and says, oh, these two ecosystems have different things, and Valve has its whole history, but it's not actually true when Xbox has its whole history as well. I mean, at the same time, Gabe Newell was kind of at Microsoft, which created Xbox, so seems kind of weird.
That Valve does a better job at making older games readily available than Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo. It's just a giant cope. It always has been. And this is the reality of this.
No, they do. Most of the games that you can play even today, like modern games and even the best games of back in the day, can be played on a PC, and not just through Steam itself, and not just through Steam OS or anything like that. No. You brought up emulation and modding and stuff before. All of that is available on the PC as a platform, not just on Steam. Saying that like, oh, throwing away these quote unquote things that Steam benefits from, being again emulation and modding, which are not really Steam like centric itself. All three of those things are PC-centric items that exist. And saying, like, oh, they don't actually, like, it's not actually good, and they have, like, a worse history of doing that. I can still play everything from even the Atari age if I really wanted to, or, like, a Game Boy system or anything like that. And Nintendo is actually actively trying to hurt its history through it. Like, it's the systems that it has. It actively wants you to not by shutting down a lot of the older stores, like the Nintendo DS, like 3DS store, the like old Wii shop and stuff like that. They shut down all of these older shops, and yeah, with some good reasons, I guess. But you can't play a lot of those older games now. They're stuck, and they do not exist on on some of the forward platforms. They're getting better at it for sure, with at least Xbox and PlayStation themselves. But Nintendo is probably the worst when it comes to backwards compatibility, more or less. Not like saying that they're the worst overall, but they used to be a lot better than they currently are. Valve and PC specifically, and more the PC overall, is the best place to play any game that you can really play from any generation, if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of it.
Situation. Like, the instant that Valve produces a console, these people like start getting excited. They start thinking that they're finally going to get one up over those console peasants, and that they're finally going to like leave an impact in the gaming space outside of their weird online fringe internet gooner communities, and then nothing happens. Okay, like the Steam Deck hasn't even outsold the Wii U yet. Okay, like it barely outsold the Virtual Boy, and considering the Virtual Boy is being re-released in February, we're going to see the Virtual Boy outperform that too. Like, again, we live in a reality where Virtual Boy is going to out.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to stop because I'm gonna get very much too angry, and it's much too early in the morning to be talking on, making angry faces at stuff like this. But look, number one, this already inevitably means that it's the worst thing ever. Because, yeah, the Virtual Boy is being quote-unquote re-released. It's not. It's literally just a plastic housing that kind of has, like, these lenses that allow you to play the emulation of the Virtual Boy games on your Switch, too, I think. So it's not re-releasing the actual Virtual Boy. It's more of a dock that you put your shit into in order to, make it work. And while, sure, Valve's Steam Deck might not have sold more than the Wii U, which, again, weird metric, I guess, it still outsold outsold a lot of people's expectations. And in the end, given Valve was selling it off of one storefront, one singular online storefront in Steam, on Steam's platform, right? That is an impressive number that they sold that many, and they're probably still selling a lot more. It was in the top buying for like overall on the whole website for fucking weeks, maybe even over the years that it's been on their platform. So while sure, in a lot of cases you can look at it and be like, oh, Valve's Steam Deck and the grandiose thing is a failure, despite the fact that, again, they created an entire like new new blue ocean marketplace for people who want like PC like handhelds and stuff. Never mind the fact that a lot of the people that use the Steam controller ended up buying other controllers along the way, because now controller support for PCs has been updated to the point where you can use practically any controller, at least any modern controller, very seamlessly without actually like plugging in and doing a couple things. We have to reroute some controllers and stuff. Maybe for older controllers they didn't actually have that because they didn't have the possibilities for it. But for the newer ones that have like controller support, that's still available today. That was something that Valve did. That's something that Valve accomplished. Same thing with a lot of the console stuff. When Valve did this last time, a lot of the consoles ended up actually improving overall, at least kind of. It didn't improve to a significant degree as it will today, probably, but again, the Valve Index was a super popular VR headset and is still super popular and one of the best headsets despite its age. And while yes, it is kind of niche and a little bit smaller than you might think in terms of scope, but overall, when you have people who are basically taking their games, right, their exclusive games, their exclusive libraries, such as Xbox and PlayStation, both of those guys has brought a lot of their exclusive library, those system-selling games, over to the PC seamlessly. And as a more interesting factoid, the PlayStation games, a lot of them are Steam Deck compatible. That's right. Steam Deck compatible. Like fucking, I will never get tired of this example, but the first Spider-Man game, by default, had gyro controls that worked seamlessly with the Steam Deck. Fucking integrated gyro controls from the developer out of the box, and it was still Steam Deck compatible. You're telling me that that's a failure? Get a fucking life, dude. Overall, I think that'll about do it for today's episode of I Ranted to This Microphone about seemingly unnecessary things, but overall will actually have a greater impact on the world and history, and everyone will probably remember for a long, long time to come. If you like what it is I do and support me in other way, shape, or form, other than like and subscribe, which always opens enough links down to everything in the description below. My name is GamePango21. I do stream on here Sunday at 2 p.m. Sunday at 12 p.m. EST, both on here and on twitch.tv/GamePango21. If you want to support me on Ko-Fi, donate me some money over there, or if you want to hit me up for a commission, try to message me somewhere where I'll probably see it. It's either Twitter or maybe even my Discord. Maybe even Discord. I don't actually have my own Discord, so I maybe want to get one, but I really don't want to run it unless I have people to actually run it in mod style, just stuff. So, yeah. Overall, that'll about do it for today. Thank you so much for watching again, and a peace off.